hit the record. Cool. So we're recording right now.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. We got Leo here. He just closed on a deal, and oh my God, I'm super excited to get started, man. How's it going? Maybe you get started by introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about your background. How did you even get to this space of acquisitions?
Wow, that's a long story. To give a little bit of a backstory, I come from, my name's Leo, as you already know. I'm from Nigeria. I was originally born, and bred in Nigeria. I'm currently staying in Ukraine, and I'm doing acquisitions in the US, which is also crazy.
So just to clarify that, you bought a business right now doing more than $1 million a year in revenues in the US, and you're based in Ukraine, right? You never even visited the US to close the deal.
Yes, I didn't even visit
right?
the US. Yes.
All right, so let's start with it. So yeah, let's get back to it. So what's your background? What did you do before that? Did you have any business before that, or any background in business, or anything like that?
I had absolutely no background in business. I never knew what the meaning of revenue was and cash flow. Literally nothing. Like, I was blank when I started learning about acquisitions. I found out about the possibility to buy a business, and I realized that you could actually do this without having so much money down. And because of my background, I'm not wealthy. And actually, the place I was in my life at that point in time when I found out about this, I was in a horrible place, right? Financially. And so, that's how my interest got picked by, the idea. I was fascinated. I was a physician of medicine. I had a strong passion for music. I play about 25 musical instruments. But I come from, very humble background, so to speak. Right. And so, yeah, I was a blank check when I learned about.
I remember we had a call maybe a few months ago, or even more, man. And you were looking at deals in Ukraine, right? And you're like, man, I just need those few $1,000s or whatnot to buy a business in Ukraine. I was like, oh my God, business in Ukraine. Like, I don't even know the country. I don't know what's possible. Like, people are, again, with no judgment, but it's kind of like, you just don't know what you're getting yourself into. So
Yes.
what got you to then deciding to kind of like pivot and say, hey, okay, I'm going to go to the US then?
I had a couple of deals in the Ukraine, and I just couldn't close them because I didn't have equity. And here, the generation is still in a stage where they are comfortable with not selling, right? It's very hard to find 85-year-old man who's built a business and who's grown that business such that he wants to exit and doesn't care, right? It's very hard to find such individuals over here because the generational span is not that long yet. And so all of the deals that I found, I needed some kind of an equity push to get them closed. And also a huge challenge that I had was the fact that there wasn't a lot of financial institutions that you could work with. And so that didn't give a lot of flexibility as far as how you could, structure the deal or how you could finance. And there was literally maybe like 5 investment banks that were financing acquisitions. And, while I was having all of these challenges and I was really frustrated because I knew here's a fantastic deal. Here's a willing seller. Institution wants to see, equity injection, and I just couldn't find the equity. And then I recall I was looking at, I was trying to reach out to international banks to see if there was any international, financial institution that'd be interested in financing a deal. And I was looking at this Rolodex, the one in the course, and there was like 500 banks, from the US. And like, hey, here I am working with just 4 banks, and here's 500 institutions. I feel like I'm wasting my time. And I'd spent close to 8 months trying to acquire a business. And I thought, okay, let me try to see what options do I have in the US if I could try to do this. And I started to think, okay, what do I need? What is the biggest challenge of trying to acquire a business while not actually being in the US? If you have a financial institution, if you have a willing seller, you have an asset that covers what the financial institution requires, what is the biggest challenge, right? And I put a plan and I started taking steps, one step at a time. And, that's how I, got to doing an acquisition in the US.
I love it. So how did you pick then what sector, like I know, or like, let's talk about how did you kind of like decided on that sector, and how did you then go out and find the deal?
Okay, so at first, while I was trying to do acquisitions in Ukraine, I was looking at the most advanced sector that had lots of opportunities and, that lenders were most active in. and that was the agricultural sector. And it actually makes sense as a sector because it's growing, and food is always is always in deficit, right? And
Hmm.
since things didn't work out there, and I was looking at the US, there was a lot more options as to, the options were endless, opportunities were, boundless. And I'm a physician of medicine. And I thought, why don't I look at something where I have a little bit of more credibility, right? Because I thought credibility would be a huge problem. And so I said, okay, let me try to, look at something within, my specialty as a healthcare professional. And that's how I decided that, healthcare, and I started looking at all of the different, facets of healthcare, what works best for lenders. I was just always thinking about lenders, right? What works best for them?
And it's exciting. You're saying your background is in healthcare, but it's not like you ran a multi-million dollar business in the healthcare space before,
Absolutely.
right?
I was just an employee, like, just an employee.
I love it. And that's what I'm telling people. Like, I don't care if you worked in Uber in the past. Moving forward, if you want to buy a business, you're saying your background is in transportation, period.
Yes,
And use
yes.
that to your advantage.
And it sounds fantastic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Awesome. I love it. So you decided in healthcare. Then how do you go out there and find the deal then?
Yeah, so I decided healthcare. I tried different, sectors, but I tried to, maximize my time. So I
Hmm.
spend a week learning about a sector. I spend a week calling people in the sector, talking to people, talking to lenders, and trying to see, do lenders have interest in this sector? What do they want to see in this sector? And I realized there was a lot of interest in sectors that have, a little bit of assets, right? So it was very hard to find in sectors with no asset because you needed SBA. I wasn't eligible for an SBA, but I could be eligible for a sector that has assets. And the assisted living sector, it ticks a lot of boxes for me. It's a very tough sector as far as, its resilience to recession. It's a fantastic sector because, you just have residents and, they're paying you. There is work to be done, right? But it's very stable. The numbers are not hard to understand. It's resident fee, and they have assets. Lenders love the sector. And there were thousands of assisted living facilities in every state I checked. I'm like, this, this ticks all the boxes for me. And that's how
Yeah.
I chose the assisted living industry. I learned about, okay, once again, what is the biggest challenge, right, for this sector? The license, right? How do you get the license? Nothing too complicated, right? I checked how to get the license and I knew that, okay, this is something I can do, right? Nothing
Hmm.
out of this world, and I am eligible to be able to get the license once I have a facility running. And that's how I selected the assisted living industry and started, working all of my, hours into the industry.
Love it. How did you then go and find the seller? Did you cold call, use other strategies that we teach, or emails, LinkedIn, or what worked for
I
you?
try to use all everything at once, right? I recall
Okay.
you said in one of the calls in one of the meetings, I can't remember exactly. Do whatever gets you, whatever gets you results, right? And everything was getting me some sort of results, right? But why not do everything together? Nothing stops me, even if I'm cold calling, nothing stops me to send an email, right? So I was cold calling, I was cold emailing, I was cold LinkedIning, if I can call it that, right? I was doing everything I could. Once I, get a hold of a broker, I tell them, hey, look, we can work together, right? If you want to get paid just like I want to get paid, let's find a solution. I have no problem making sure that from my end, I give you a percentage to keep you motivated to get the deal done, right? And I got brokers reaching out to me with deals, from right, left, and center. And I got people replying to my email. I sent like thousands of emails, thousands. I would send like 150 LinkedIn messages a day, and I'll try to personalize them. So it was horrible work, but I little by little I got used to it actually, and so that's how I found a deal. And one fantastic thing about an industry where you have licenses is the fact that um, there is usually a directory in every state of the list of companies, right? And
Love it.
so that was just, it was a gold mine for me when I found out that there was a directory. Sometimes the directory had the numbers of the administrators of these facilities, and I was like, wow, this is
Beautiful, man.
this is gold mine. Yeah, and just
So good.
cold calling, thousands of cold calling. Yeah, and I found actually a broker that took up on my offer, and I said, hey, look, I can share, something with you. Let's get this done. And we worked together to get the deal done.
I love it, man. So it was a broker. Then he helped you. I guess you had access to financials. How did you then decide on what offer to make on the business? And let's even take a step back at the same time. I know you built yourself a team of advisory and share the equity. Maybe share a little bit about that. By the way, part of what we want to do with acquisitions.com moving forward is create a program where we are going to be the board for clients. I know that
Oh, wow.
that could have been valuable for people, right? For you
Awesome.
perhaps as well. But yeah, maybe walk us through that process a bit of what that looks like and how did they help you, or yeah, whatever you want to share. I'll let you talk. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another story on its own, because I had to build 3 board to get to this point. So obviously the first one, while I was trying to do acquisitions in the Ukraine, right? I had a board that I was working with in the Ukraine. Physically, we could meet each other. And when I decided to switch to the US, first I was looking at acquiring clinics, medical clinics. And so I had to build a board for acquiring medical clinics. The board wasn't performing, and I had to, fire the board and create a completely different board when I decided I was going to go to assisted living facilities. And actually, when I built the 3rd board, I had to do it in 72 hours because I'd found a deal. I had signed the LOI, and I needed to do due diligence. And I was like, okay, what do I do now? I have the LOI. What do I do with this LOI? Right? I had to draft, contracts and a lot of things. So I went crazy with, putting together a board, and I didn't sleep for like 3 days and put together, it was really, really aggressive.
Good
And
job, man. Where did you get them? Like LinkedIn mostly?
interestingly, I found a very interesting way, to build a board, because, I was playing a lot of things, and I put a post in LinkedIn that here's a company, here's our goal, here's what we want to do in 2 years. We want to get to 100 million by the end of 2022 in market capitalization. And we are open for, partners who want to be, member of the board of advisors. We're looking to give away equity. If you're interested, reach out. So I just said, okay, let me just try this, right? And the response was incredible. I had like close to 400 people with incredible resumes reach out to me, and I was overwhelmed. So the 3 days I actually spent conducting interviews with these guys, 20 minutes interviews with no break whatsoever. I would stand up to drink water, and I would go on and go on. So I was looking at, how humble is this person, regardless of, what he had on his list. And I met different kinds of people, right? Some really massive guys, and you would tell how someone treats me, because, I'm always careful about, and I'm always wary about the fact that, my race, and I'm Nigerian, and I'm in Ukraine, and I'm trying to do a deal in the US. And there's a lot of things that need to go right for that to work. And so how a person reacts to that idea tells me a lot about their character, right? Someone will say, oh, you're crazy, that's not going to work. That's just, fallacy, right? And someone will say, wow, that's a challenge. I like that. Let's get this done. As that's my guy. Yeah. So that's how I was able to put the board together. And yeah, that's how I did it.
Good stuff, man. So how much equity did you share with all your board members, if you don't mind me asking?
2% for the chairman, 2 for the transactional attorney, and 2 for we had a heads of operations and a CPA.
Got it. So then you had an LOI. You got to the LOI on your own, right? You didn't use them at all. So you signed the LOI on your own. How did you send the offer? How did you decide on what offer to send them, the business owner?
By looking at all of the information that you have, which is actually incredibly packed. And I have a short story, by the way, to tell you how I got to the course, and which is incredibly packed. And I've looked at those videos over and over and over again. And somehow in the back of my head, whenever I see a deal, I always have options of, okay, let me test this, let me test this. And also I was constantly speaking with financial institutions. I knew what they wanted. And so I always tried to make sure the offer was fitting with what they wanted and was fitting with what I was able to do, considering my, position. Did I have equity at the time that I could put in, or did I want it to be seller financing and, financial institution combination? And so that was what I was looking at, and that's how I decided, what was best to place as an offer. So it was more of a seller finance at first. The kind of offer I was making, seller finance 65%, sorry, seller finance 45%, term financing for 65%, a term loan that will last 2 or 3 years, and then eventually I'd refinance via a much more agency type financing like HUD or FHA, that will last now, amortize for 35 years, somewhat, something of that nature.
Did you need to sign any personal guarantees on those loans?
Yeah, for a lot of them, they wanted to do personal guarantees, and that's when I needed, someone who was a citizen of the US that was willing to, do personal guarantee for return.
Yeah. So you found a partner in this deal, right?
Yes.
That partner is part of our community as well, right?
Yes, he's part of the community, and it really helped because he understood what was going on, and I didn't have to do a lot of explaining. But I think it was a lot of value to me, because I think for someone that doesn't know you to trust you such that, they were willing to put their house on the line. I think it was so much. So I'm so grateful to him, Cody Smith, and I can't say that enough, right? Because it was just too much of value to do that for someone you've never met, right? So
that's the beauty of having a community like that, right? People who are kind of like thinking the same on the same journey. That's freaking awesome, man. I'm humbled on creating that opportunity. It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
So now he got equity in the business as well, right?
Yes. So now he's got equity in the business, a comfortable chunk for him. And I'm really happy that I could, say thank you in such a manner. It's more pleasure to me than it is to him. And so a lot of the institutions wanted to see personal guarantee, even if some of them would say non-recourse, but we would do bad boy carve-outs, right? So we would have a personal guarantee. If something goes wrong, we would take whatever we felt was valuable enough to cover the cost of the loan.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like non-recourse, but it's recourse all the same.
Yeah. Did they ask you to put any equity in the deal? And if so, and how did you manage that?
Yeah, so a lot of the institutions wanted to see equity. Because mind you, now the pandemic was raging, and there was madness all around the US, right? Nobody knew what was going to happen. I myself was thinking, am I in the right industry? Because a lot of things were happening in my industry that were not, sort of like positive, right? We saw a lot of deaths, a lot of, infections, a lot of breakouts in some of these assisted living facilities.
Yeah.
So I was starting to think, am I in the right industry as well? Lenders closed their doors to financing assisted living facilities. And so, I was thinking really if I was in the wrong industry at the wrong time. And so a lot of these lenders at this time would say, look, if we are going to do a deal, we want to see some equity. We want to share the risk with you. And I wasn't big on equity. I don't have cash, and I didn't have anyone around me. I was looking out for investors. I was reaching out, I'm crazy, right? So I would reach out to 1,000, 2,000 people, and it's not a big deal for me. I was determined to close the deal, right? But I wasn't lucky. I didn't meet anybody. And so that was when I started to think. I said to the seller, hey, look, you and I can see what's happening in the world right now. Assisted living facilities are no longer the most exciting industry for anybody. But you have a facility that is doing fantastically well, and I have a desire to acquire your facility. You have a desire to sell. Let's work out something together. The financial markets are working against us, but we can work for each other. If you're able to meet me in the center, we can find a way that works for you and works for me, and it's a win-win for everybody. So I was trying to get him to understand that, hey, look, we may not be able to finance this deal by having a financial institution inject capital, to have you take a chunk at closing. And I was also putting a lot of pressure, letting him know that if you took a chunk of like $1 million or $2 million, you'd have to pay tax on that money. And all of that tax is going nowhere, right? So why not figure out a way that we can do it? You get all of the money, maybe not right away, but you get all of the money and you're happy, I'm happy, and everybody goes home, everything is a success. So I was trying to find ways to just really talk to him, get to his head. And I presented an offer. I got the idea for the offer by talking to many, many people. When I would do cold calls, and I would, meet someone that was, wanting to talk, I would really talk to them. I would really listen to them, right? And let them, just let it out on me. I would spend 2 hours talking to one person. And yeah, so I got a lot of insight. I'll take notes. I learned a lot about the industry. And there was this guy I was talking to that told me, they were trying to do the same thing, actually, acquire facilities, consolidate, exit. And he told me, hey, look, here's what we're doing. We're trying to acquire these facilities. We're doing no money down. And we just, take over the facilities and, blah, 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 blah. And I was thinking, okay, so they rent the building, right? They sort of like, rent the building, and eventually they, pay the seller step by step until they are able to finance the acquisition. And I was speaking to a management company at this time. I'd found a management company that I was working with. I was also taking advice from them. Fantastic, fantastic company. And I said, hey, look, is it possible to rent not just the building, but the goodwill? Is it possible to rent goodwill? And we started rubbing minds. We started, talking to attorneys. He went, spoke with his attorneys. I brought it up with my team. We couldn't find a problem why you could not, lease rent goodwill, right? The laws work for
Yeah.
you to be able to lease goodwill. So we leased both the building and the goodwill. So now what happens is we take over operations, all of the revenue, all of the everything comes to us. We give a seller a percentage of that, and we keep the rest. Now, the seller is happy because he gets out of the business. He gets to take a rest, but he gets a percentage of what makes him feel good, right?
Yeah.
I'm happy because I get to take over operations. I build a track record, right? And I also get to build equity. I build some cash flow. And a third part of it made it fantastic because now, before we closed the deal, we had a financial institution that was willing to finance the acquisition. They underwrote the deal. They were ready to finance, but we said, hey, wait, because now we closed the deal. We can build our reputation, our portfolio. But most importantly, we knew there were just a few things that we could do to tweak the deal, and that would bump up the valuation of the business almost 2 times. And so now we can finance, over finance, and cash out. And now we have equity to do more deals.
I love it. So you didn't use the institution at all to close the deal?
Yes, we didn't use the institution to close the deal.
So good. So it's just like all financed over a period of time using the business cash flow.
Yes. Yes.
So good. So in terms of the due diligence, basically you had your internal team do all the finance and legal due diligence and creating the contracts and going through everything.
Yes.
I love it. Man, that's beautiful. So what's the plan for management? Who's going to be there day to day running everything?
Yeah. So, like I alluded to.
Because you're in Ukraine, right? Because you're in Ukraine. You're not.
Yes,
you're not
I'm
really
in
the
Ukraine.
day-to-day.
A fantastic question. It's incredibly important that I had someone that I could trust, that will run, the day to day. So that was a huge part of the puzzle. When I was starting on my plan, I knew this was absolutely necessary. And so I was also, as I was calling sellers, I was calling lenders, I was also calling, management companies. And I would look at their ratings. So they have a system in Wisconsin where you could see the history of a management company, what they've done in the past, excuse me, and how the agency, the licensing agency, how they perceive this management company. And so there were a few on top of the list that were, I wanted these guys because they'd done a fantastic job. And I was able to build a rapport with one of them. And we worked together for like 6 months. This guy put a lot of sweat equity together with his team, going to the facilities, looking at them, breaking them down for me, looking at all of the things that physically needed to be improved on, and making videos, sending it to me hundreds of miles. He would move to look at this facility. So we were able to work together. He put in a lot of sweat equity, and when we closed the deal, they were our go-to partner for doing the day-to-day.
Love it, man. Man, that's really inspiring, dude. I'm so excited for you.
Yes.
What else would you share with anyone who's on the journey and trying to do his first deal? What would you tell them?
Wow. So much, so much, man. Because I think there are a few things that are incredibly important. That really helped me to do the deal. I always remember you would always start on Monday by saying, what do you have set to be accomplished this week? I can't remember how you phrased that question, but that's a question I always ask myself. What steps are you taking towards the right um, towards the right direction?
Hmm.
And it's a cliche, but don't give up is actually a cliche for a reason.
Yeah.
Because it's incredibly important. I mean, I had everything against me. I have everything against me. Dampenya would also say that it's harder for doctors and engineers to do QLA because we think differently. And it was hard for me because I had a lot of learning curves. I was learning business, I was learning negotiation, I was learning financials, I was learning everything at the same time. And I was talking to lenders, brokers, learning how to talk to all of these guys. So it was a massive learning curve. And that was why, not giving up was incredibly important, because I had actually 5 deals that didn't close, right? And we did 4 due diligence for these 5 deals. So one of the due diligence fell apart after we found out some things. The other 3 due diligence, everything looks fantastic, right? We want to close the deal, but we had no equity. I had no equity, and I couldn't find an equity part. So,
Well, right now, moving forward, by the way, if those deals are on the table, we can talk about it after the recording. But yeah, anyway, continue with your
absolutely,
story.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was incredibly important that I didn't give up, because every time, I realized that, the due diligence time frame is gone, and you have to come to terms with the fact that, okay, this deal is not closing. The
Yeah.
seller is starting to say, hey, look, I'm moving on. It's always hard. It's really hard. I remember one night, for this particular deal, we had done a massive amount of work for 8 months. And I placed this offer. When I first placed the offer to say, hey, no money down. And I said, why don't we finance from the inside? One of the first offers, I said, okay, we take over operations and we use the assets of the business to finance from the inside directly. So the seller sort of signs on the loan. And the seller called the deal off the table. After I placed that offer, after 8 months, after we finished due diligence, the seller said, look, I feel bad about this. This guy is a Nigerian. I don't know if you know about Nigerians. We have a horrible reputation as far as fraud is concerned. You know,
Nigerian princess,
yes,
prince and stuff like
Nigerian
that. Yeah.
prince. Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, you're fully
Yeah. I
informed.
hear you, man.
Yeah, so this was working against me, because when I would say I'm Nigerian, it would just, everything was working against me. And so when I made this
Yeah.
offer, the seller called the deal out of the table. She's like, I feel bad about this. This guy's a Nigerian and he's in Ukraine, and he wants to do a deal, and he's telling me
Wow.
that we're going to finance from inside. I think he's a fraudster.
Not easy, man. Seriously, wow. Taking my hat off to you, dude.
And
Seriously.
I
Yeah.
remember this night, and I was sitting down in the room with my wife, and I just cried, man. I was broken as a man. I just cried, because I knew in my heart that I'm trying my best to do something valuable and to bring some value, to be as honest as I can, as noble as a father as I can. And here I'm being fraud flagged. And it broke me, man. So I woke up a couple of days later, and my wife always says, I've never seen you so ready to give up in, our entire 3 years of being together. And by the way, she's a fantastic support. And I woke up a couple of days later. I'm like, no, I'm not going to give up. Like, come on, I've worked for 2 years, and I'm going to give up because someone fraud flagged me. Like, no, actually, the third day I was starting to get pissed. So I sent a message to the seller, like I was really pissed, and the broker as well, with a really pissed tone. And after about maybe 4 weeks, the seller came back and said, okay, we've done our research, we've done our background search or whatever, we're ready to move forward, but we're not going to finance from the inside. So what I'm trying to say in a nutshell, how important it is not to give up, right? The challenge was just overwhelming, but I knew that if I didn't give up, if I kept moving forward, if I kept taking a step towards the right direction every day, it was going to happen one way or another. I didn't know how, but I knew it was. And so it's incredibly important not to give up. It's important to keep improving yourself, keep working on each other, on yourself, and just keep moving forward, man. Just keep moving forward. That's what I always said to myself. Yeah, that's
Tough, man. Awesome. I'm really excited to share with the community the interview, man. Thank you very much for sharing that, man. Really, really appreciate it.
yeah. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure, man. It's my pleasure.
Thank you.